What are some common facts that people believe to be true even if the existing evidence states the contrary? A lot of people think they can burn belly fat by doing crunches or slim their arms down by doing push-ups, but targeted fat loss isn't possible. There is no evidence to suggest it is. You can tap a block to see if it is loose in Jenga, which is stated quite explicitly in the rules, and duck you everyone who said I couldn't wait, what the fuck, this blew up for no reason. It's not out until it's free of the system or it falls. I remember you can even try to put it back before it's out to try a different one. Maybe that's house rules, though. Official Jenga rules. A classic Jenga game consists of 54 precision-crafted, specially finished hardwood blocks. To set up the game, use the included loading tray to create the initial tower. Stack all of the blocks in levels of 3 placed next to each other along their long sides and at a right angle to the previous level. Once the tower is built, the person who stacked the tower plays first. Moving in the game Jenga consists of 1. Taking one block on a turn from any level of the tower, except the one below an incomplete top level, and 2. Placing it on the topmost level in order to complete it. Players may use only one hand at a time. Either hand may be used, but only one hand may touch the tower at any time. Players may tap a block to find a loose one. Any blocks moved but not played should be replaced, unless doing so would make the tower fall. The turn ends when the next player touches the tower, or after 10 seconds, whichever occurs first. The game ends when the tower falls, completely, or if any block falls from the tower, other than the block a player moves on a turn. The loser is the person who made the tower fall, i.e., whose turn it was when the tower fell. Interesting that if you can make it take longer than 10 seconds to fall, you technically win. Edit: also, if the block you place falls off the tower, and nothing else falls, that appears to be fine. By these rules you can completely remove a block and put it back as long as the tower stands, if you so wish. I read this in such an ominous and portentous voice. The most violent arguments I've had have been convincing patients with a viral cold that they don't need antibiotics. I remember a documentary a few years back about a GP's practice here in the UK, basically filming patients, with their permission, to show a day-to-day. They literally had people come in and answer "What's the matter today?" with "I need some antibiotics." They didn't even elaborate on why, just "I need some antibiotics." You see, my roommate Dave always plays loud music at night, when I'm trying to sleep. No one likes it. So I need some antibiotics. Preferably strong ones. My mom, she gets super depressed sometimes. I need antibiotics to cope with it. A person drowning is not likely to be flailing wildly and yelling like in the movies. Drowning can often happen with mostly silence, especially with kids. Read up on the signs, it might save a life. I was drowning and lost consciousness when I was 5, I was told I barely made a sound. I went under, sucked in lungs full of water when I tried to cry out in surprise and blacked out. If it wasn't for my dad's instincts and quick action I'd be dead. The sight spot the drowning child is a terrifying, but manageable, way to learn this. God bless the lifeguards in those videos for their reaction time. I only beat the lifeguard once in the 5 videos I watched, which is pretty crazy emo. Actually, even then I was 0.14s too slow according to the text under the vid. Then take into account the fact that they're standing there all day, not knowing if someone is drowning, while we are told that one of those people is drowning. Easily the biggest factor. Days and days on end they may not have to do anything, and then boom, jumping into action in seconds. We used videos like that when I did my NPLQ, National Pool Lifeguard Qualification, and when we did bi-weekly retraining. That stuff isn't easy, and the fact young lifeguards are paid so little is awful. I lifeguard from 16 to 17 and was in incredible physical health, really strong swimmer, The exact person that you'd want to be a lifeguard on poolside if you're a bad swimmer. I liked the job because of who I worked with, but $4.15 per hour, $5.12, was not enough to even at that age to keep me in the job where I'd suffered heat stroke on multiple occasions, been spat on by grown adults, threatened with violence for tapping someone's kid to make sure they weren't dead, and was even called a cunt and told "I'll be waiting for you when you finish" by a bloke on my first day of training because I glanced in their direction with a frown as I was blatantly clearing rubbish from our cafe tables. Not sure why I'm posting this other than to say just be nicer to lifeguards. They put a lot of effort into their job and are paid a pittance for the luxury of getting abuse on a daily basis. Obviously this wasn't directed at you personally. You can radical 30. That 30 used to be considered ancient back when the average lifespan was 25 or whatever. The average is offset by a huge number of child deaths. 30 was never ancient. Even hunter-gatherer societies had people routinely living into their 60s. It is rarely necessary to wait 24 hours before filing a missing person report. Yup, our police has this listed on their Facebook page as a common myth. Someone really needs to let Hollywood know. Oh, there are so many things that someone needs to let Hollywood know. For some reason in the movie Road Trip the characters quote the weight of a mid-90s Ford Taurus wagon as 2,400 pounds when in reality it's more like 3,500 and easily verifiable. I don't know why, but this has always bugged the crap out of me. Haven't seen the movie. Is it something one of the characters says offhand without looking it up? It could be that the character was wrong, not the movie. It is said offhand, but with authority to explain via physics that they can jump a gap in said car, which they proceed to do successfully, except that they completely destroy its suspension. If him using the incorrect weight was done with intent, it was certainly lost on 99.9% of the audience. They just figured no one would notice or know any better. Maybe it was an Easter egg that you, alone, out of everyone who saw the movie Road Trip, understood. Cracking your knuckles too often will give you arthritis. Nope, no conclusive study has ever backed this up. It just releases the gas from the synovial fluid in your joints, which is neither good nor bad. Oh, that's good to know. As a kid I just accepted my fate because I liked the crack sound. Haha, knuckles go pop pop. Magnitude? Vikings never actually drank from skulls of enemies. This was based on a mistranslation of Old Norse poetry in which they refer to drinking from horns. They never had horns on their helmets either. Even as a kid, I thought that would be wildly inconvenient. The enemy could knock the helmet off of you super easily. I always figured it'd get caught on things. Doors. Sails. People's heads when you turn around too fast. Death Star blast doors. Close the blast doors. Close the blast doors. Open the blast doors. Open the blast doors. That if you touch a baby animal, like a bird or rabbit, its mother will neglect it and it will die. That is a myth. It was just a way for parents to get their kids to leave baby animals alone. Yeah, a few weeks ago, a baby bird fell out of its nest in our backyard. It survived and my dad was going to put it out of its misery until I told him that this myth wasn't true. We put it in a cardboard box on the table closest to its tree with some food and water and just left it alone. Its parents found it the next day and were bringing it food, and within a couple of days, it was gone. Since it's that time of year, if people do find baby birds, with feathers, on the ground, the best thing to do is leave them where they are, or move them to a safer location nearby if animals or kids are a concern. The chicks are fledgling and just learning to fly, the parents will still feed them and look out for them, and no further input is required on our behalf. We had this happen with some baby blue jays just outside our window and I just couldn't believe it to be true. But sure enough, little duckers hid in the bushes until hungry, screamed up a storm till they were fed, and then waddled back in. Happy endings all around. Lightning never strikes twice in the same place. In fact it does, and frequently. You don't want to be there when it happens. If it didn't, lightning rods would be useless. Edit, redundant isn't as good of a word. You don't replace your lightning rod after each strike? Nah, just engineered so they move a fraction of an inch after each strike. The electricity provided by the lightning is way more than enough to power the motor that moves them. People often confuse an independent media for an unbiased one. The most people only use 10% of their brain's capacity thing. Utterly ridiculous. The brain is a giant, metabolically expensive, staggeringly complex structure. Why on earth would our bodies grow something like that and then not use it? Edit. A lot of people in this thread have some very strange ideas about brains. Yes, if all your neurons fired at once that would be extremely bad. The thing to bear in mind is that different areas and structures of the brain are highly specialized for certain tasks. Talking about an overall brain capacity is misleading. There are no unused areas of the brain. You're almost certainly right. But it just makes me think of my friend that bought a 2500 MacBook and only uses it for Word and web browsing. Don't worry, that just means that it's tiny. Nah. Size has little to do with intellect. Mostly means their brain is smooth as a grape.